What is up, y'all? This is episode 1 of Rip the Net. Three friends just bringing y'all our thoughts on culture, some interests. And yeah, I'm Eric.
I'm Dre.
I'm Alexi.
Yeah, well, before anything, how you guys doing? You guys doing all right?
Yeah, it's been good. Good week. Good week of games. I've mainly been watching soccer, but crazy Champions League games.
Yeah. Barca today was nuts.
Wild game.
Yeah, no, same for me, essentially. A lot of good soccer games on, so just been paying attention to that. Paris Men's Fashion Week kicking up, so that's something on the side I'm paying a bit of attention to, but
Okay.
a bit less related.
Word. Dang, that's interesting. Dang, I feel like it's been a quiet week in the NBA. I mean, usual rumors are still circulating, nothing really crazy. I mean, on the wrestling side, we're about 2 weeks removed from Royal Rumble, which Alexi, it's a big pay-per-view, takes place in beginning of the year. So I don't know. It's been a quiet week on my end, but first thing I wanted to discuss with y'all was this NBA Fear of God Essentials collab. So there was a re-release yesterday, which from what I saw for the most part sold out pretty quickly. There are still some items available in stock, and there was also actually, before we get into the other one, I want your thoughts on the NBA drop.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a bit interesting for me because Fear of God, it's already split up into a couple parts, right? You got Fear of God, you got Essentials, you got Athletics, which is their whole thing with Adidas, and now this whole kind of separate collab with the NBA, but not related to their athletics line in Adidas. It's a bit odd to me. And although the clothing doesn't all look bad in my opinion, but it's also just kind of basic, It's the same type of hoodie, same type of tee for each team, just with a couple color changes. So it's cool, but then when you also look at that price point, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I could get maybe getting one piece to rep your city, but other than that,
yeah, I don't know. I think
mid.
there's something to be said. They're not loud, but they would still feel like loud pieces in the sense of this isn't something that I personally would feel comfortable wearing. Maybe it's just because just wearing a giant a shirt that has Knicks in giant font, just to me just doesn't sound appealing. That within itself is loud, even though the colors are neutral. To me, that just doesn't make it appealing. I will say the regular NBA essentials, with the NBA logo, to me, those tees look the most appealing just because I like the blue. And that's actually the tee that's sold out, or one of them that's sold out. But I hear you, man. I don't know. It's cool, but I don't know if it's for me.
Yeah, I see it kind of as for people who maybe like Fear of God and like kind of the hype that's associated with it. Maybe less so now than a few years ago, but still, it's a way for them to get a piece of that.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep it a buck because for the listeners out there, I'm not that big into the whole scene, especially Jerry. I never got the hype, but this is bro, I can find this at Marshall's, bro. There's nothing crazy going on here. I'm sure the price is about the quality. I'm sure. Oh, it's not? Okay, then literally you are getting robbed if you spent $170 on anything here, or $70 or however much it costs. This is crazy.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. In my experience, Essentials quality maybe it's changed since I last touched it, but pause. But when I touched an Essentials tee, an Essentials sweatshirt in the past, it is just the worst. And for the price, it doesn't make any sense. If you get any of their knits or anything a bit different, less casual, I guess, then okay, it's cool. It works. But the hoodies, yeah, they weren't cutting it. The only reason I see this being priced the way it is because the hoodie has kind of a weird cut to it. It's got a kind of some elastic lining at the bottom, it looks, of the waist and the arms. So That's the only justification. Yeah, like I don't think it's bad, but that's the only way it can be that price.
This is personal take on this, but I feel like I get it with like the NBA brand itself. That's fair enough. But having all these different teams, and of course they only do like the big teams, having these different teams have gear that all looks the same kind of defeats the purpose of repping your team to me. Like I feel like if I'm gonna wear, I'm not a Knicks fan, but if I were to wear Knicks gear, 'cause I do like the Knicks colors and the Knicks logo and stuff. I want to wear like a blue jacket with the orange details. Like that's part of repping the Knicks to me, or like any group, not just wearing a gray hoodie with the blue hood versus like the Celtics are wearing a gray hoodie with the green hood. Like to me, what's the point of spending this extra money to rep your team and look the same as all the other teams?
Yeah. That's a reasonable point, but I will counter as a casual sports fan myself, where like sometimes you're just getting it more for the fashion thing. And you know what? That's what Fear of God is. They're trying to make this more of a fashion style thing that fits into that crowd's wardrobe rather than maybe your average Knicks fan. I think it's maybe it's more for the NBA, honestly, as a way to kind of extend their reach kind of outside their typical audience, because I doubt most fashion heads are, that into the NBA. So maybe this is kind of a push on their part.
I didn't even think of that, like, because even though I am a Knicks fan, like, to me, buying, like, the blue and orange jacket is just so loud, and, like, I don't know if I'd ever wear it outside of, like, maybe going to a game. So I guess this does make it more, even though I said it's still, like, a lot, maybe for me, it doesn't work. For me personally, it doesn't work because it's, like, super, like, huge fonts. That's just not something I'm crazy big on. But the fact that, like, this is something that you could wear to school or, like, wear to work, like, this isn't something that's necessarily only in the wardrobe for, going to a game, going to an arena. This is something you could wear outside. Maybe not for myself, but, like, I could definitely see this is something that people wear every day. Because like Alexi said, this is, like, Fear of God is, like, it is, like, everyday wear. It is, like, neutral colors. It can go with multiple outfits.
And I do like the blocking. I do like the blocking of the hoodies too. Like, I will say that's kind of a unique factor for a hoodie like this, but the price is still crazy. In my head, this got to be like, it should be like $80 tops, like maximum. For a tee, like that's got to be $40, 70. And Jerry's, I don't know what.
Crashing out, bro.
Yeah.
Those Adidas shoes are, he's cooked.
Yeah, the Adidas shoes, that's a whole other story.
He's cooked.
All his Adidas. He only has one pair, which I think are fine, but they literally look like a regular Adidas, just with like a different midsole. But
we can have a discussion on all that too. Yeah, another day too.
Yeah. I'm down because honestly, I get the Jerry hate. What? I don't know, man. I think people being a little too harsh on it.
I think people are harsh on him because of essentials. I think too few people actually look at the mainline Fear of God stuff, which I think is what he excels at, like the themes he goes for, the shapes, the silhouettes, like that stuff is all cool. I just think the kind of hype side of Fear of God is the part that needs to die.
Okay. I get you. Dang, okay. Well, I guess like a little aside, there was that, I know there was the Paris release today, which is pretty much the same concept that has Paris on it, and then there seems to be the Spurs and the Pacers, which I'm confused. Why those two teams? Like,
I think because they're playing each other in Paris, and that is literally
is that it? That's how you know I'm not even. That's hilarious. What?
But like, I mean, you wouldn't even know because it doesn't say Paris anywhere on the hoodies. Yeah, it's a whole separate hoodie that just says like NBA Paris Essentials, which I mean, I already have an issue with soccer and this whole push to like start playing La Liga games in the US and having I think literally actually what is it, the Spanish Cup, I'm forgetting the actual name.
Supercopa?
Yeah, the Supercopa. Like that's not even played in Spain. I saw that was played in like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing here? If this is a Spanish league and you're not even playing in Spain anymore, what are we doing?
Yeah, the Saudis taking over everything.
The Saudis taking over everything sports-wise, but I have an issue with when these leagues and teams try to like force themselves to another city, because at that point it's like you're just losing like half of your identity inherently by doing that. I mean, for a league, for the NBA, maybe it's a bit different because it's a league and it's not tied to one city, but still you associate that with the US. So I don't know. It's just very confusing seeing NBA Paris together.
Yeah. Yeah, the NFL does something similar. They do like games in the UK sometimes. And I guess that's where the soccer's getting the inspiration. They're like, okay, if they're doing games here, why don't we go do games
there, anything for more money and potentially new audiences, which fortunately it works, but I think you kind of lose a bit of the soul of the sport when you do that. But
that's interesting.
Maybe that's an old
I was gonna
take.
say, because I honestly like it when they go out. I mean, I'm not in any way, as y'all can see, I'm not tuning into the Spurs and Pacers because I could care less about those teams. But honestly, as someone who attended, and given it was a friendly match, so it wasn't like a tournament match, but when Barca and Real Madrid came to New Jersey this past summer, I was super excited to go, and so I went, and I had a ton of fun. Took my younger brother, and it was such a vibe. Like to me, it was also like seeing the American passion for soccer. And granted, it was like a lot of Latinos, so it was like, I've been to soccer matches at MetLife in the past, and so I've seen that same crowd turn out for like a Gold Cup match and things like that. But seeing them turn out for a Barca Real Madrid match and seeing the passion like in the parking lot, like inside the stadium, and like even on the way out.
Yeah.
To me, that was super cool because I'm like, man, like I would have not seen, like there was no chance I would have seen this. Obviously, I could book a trip out to Spain and match out there, but I have never had the opportunity to do that. So as someone who went to one of these matches, and I also saw actually Man City and AC Milan at the Yankee Stadium match as well. That one was honestly not as fun because I guess it's not, like it wasn't the rivalry match that Barca and Real Madrid was, but it was still cool. It was still really cool seeing Holland playing at Yankee Stadium. Like that's pretty sick. And then obviously there was a good turnout for Pulisic as well. So I think I personally enjoy it. I get the point in doing it. I like the expansion of sports. We're gonna talk a little bit about like the NBA in a bit, but with viewership down, I think extending and showing that you're making a constant effort to grow the game, I can personally respect it.
I think that's an interesting point, and I will agree. Like for friendly off-season matches, I think it's fine. I think when it's like the middle of the season, though, and like the main league, that you're having these players fly across the world to play one game in a different city, where it's just off to me. And same goes for like cups, which may have a history within the country or named after a country, like the Super Cup. I'm already forgetting the name, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. I think the friendly, I 100% agree. The preseason tours they do, I know they go like all over. Like some do America, some go to Asia, some go to South America, whatever. I think those are like a great way of growing the sport and like expanding. So I think that works. I agree with Alexi though. I think for competitive games, for like domestic leagues, those should be in the league. I think the NBA has an opportunity with the in-season tournament they started doing, because to me anyway, that doesn't really hold too much weight, at least not yet. I think that's actually a good opportunity to. I know they go to Vegas, right, for like the final and semifinal. Yeah, but I think that actually would be a good opportunity to do some games potentially in other locations. I know it's kind of tough because it's in season, like there are also normal games happening at the same time. So, but maybe if it just means taking those last games that are in Vegas and instead doing those abroad, I think that could be cool. But I think other than that, the most games should be played. I think the Champions League is fun because obviously that's a continent-wide tournament. So like every year you can have a final in a different place. Oh, because that I think is cool too. But other than that, if it's like purely domestic, I feel like you're kind of robbing your domestic fans of that competition. If you're like, okay, fans from Madrid and Barcelona, you guys now have to go buy plane tickets
to go see El Clasico.
El Clasico in Saudi Arabia, which is kind of tough for those fans, I think. But I think I can see both sides of it for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Okay, yeah. Well, in that same breath, I think it'd be good to jump into the next, since we're already talking about expanding the game. We're talking about in-season tournaments. Lexi, do you want to introduce the next talking point?
Yeah, no. So as someone who primarily just watches soccer, mainly the Prem, and who, watches a bit of NBA for like big games like the finals, whatever. And, it's something I would like to maybe watch a bit more down the line, but for me it's been a hard thing to watch consistently because for me you don't have the same stakes you have in a lot of soccer, which is, relegation as a big factor. So I am curious what you guys would think of relegation as something that could be added to either the NBA or other US sports, because kind of across the board, from what I understand, like the MLB is down in viewership. NFL, I'm not so sure, but generally they could all be doing better. So I'm curious if you guys think relegation's a good thing or any other factors that can maybe help the games grow.
No, it's a good question, and I think that definitely, like, the idea of making the league more competitive is a great idea. I think with the NBA, the way it's set up, the fact that every team is set to a salary cap, that within itself makes it so that ideally teams have equal chances to compete and make it far, and compete for a championship. So I think relegation, even though like something can be said about, people may have a negative opinion when a team begins to tank, meaning like they begin to purposely lose games for like to potentially get a high draft pick. Like that's something that relegation would maybe limit, right? Because then no one wants to be the team with the highest draft pick, because that would probably jeopardize their business, would jeopardize their standing in the league. I understand it. I just don't know if the structure that's currently set in the NBA would make it work. But I know Dre already kind of like mentioned it, but incorporating international teams into something like the in-season tournament, I think would be a much better way to get more viewership. Bring in Barcelona, Real Madrid, like those are already teams that I've seen NBA teams have friendly games against. So incorporating them into something like the in-season tournament, that, like Dre said, it does not hold much weight besides like it's a fun thing to watch at the beginning of the season. Beyond that, like no one's counting in-season tournament rings, no one's counting in-season tournament wins. Like it's not something that really holds much weight. But I think seeing NBA teams play against international teams would also be interesting, given how competitive international basketball has been on the level, like with FIBA and then obviously the Olympics this past summer. So I would like to see that. I would like to see international teams incorporated into the in-season tournament instead. I think that would definitely be interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting you mentioned the draft and also just, I guess, the overarching structure, because that is something very unique to the US, where you kind of have this pipeline of like college sports to the professional league that you don't really see anywhere else. And I can understand how international games could help in, making things more interesting, but you said it yourself, like they don't really matter at the end of the day. And at least for me, maybe this is just a me thing for watching sports, but it's like there has to be something. Like my team needs to be performing and doing well. And if they're not, they're either going to miss out on a tournament, they're going to miss out on playing in the league, they're going to miss out on being able to sign better players. Like I feel like there have to be repercussions so that people know they have to perform and do their best. And I can understand how a salary cap, can partially play a part, but I think there maybe needs to be more pressure, because for me, when I just think about watching an NBA game, I'm like, well, does it really matter? I could just wait for the finals. Like there aren't really any stakes. Like I know that if a team isn't doing well, it's like, all right, well, they're going to be in the league next season.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
That's really fair. And I think it also makes sense because you have in like a league like the NBA that's split between the East and the West. You have for like many years it's been that the East has been the weaker conference. So you have a juggernaut like the Celtics that can cruise their way through the entire season, cruise through the first few rounds of the playoffs, make it to the finals, and I think that was like the biggest point of criticism during last year's finals, or just the entire Celtics chip was, hey, like they didn't really face the challenging teams. Like they didn't really have to come across. They faced the Pacers in the conference final. They had to face Tyrese Halliburton. Like that was the biggest.
Like the whole idea of the conference is East-West. Like that's just so weird to me. Why are we dividing like this? We got enough teams. You can all play together. It's what, like a 3-hour time difference? Big deal. Like,
yeah, I'm so with you on that. Like, yeah, but that's, and like the MLB does it. Like the MLB has the American League and the National League, the NFL and the AFC. Like, just because they're.
And I'm curious because I don't follow baseball, but even like AFC, NFC, there aren't split. I know they have conferences that are within those, or divisions within those that are like regional, but like overall they're not split East and West, but still the AFC is considered way stronger overall, like having, at least maybe this year, maybe it's starting to balance a bit more, but generally the AFC the last few years has been considered stronger. So I feel like it always ends up leaning one way. I don't know if baseball, if one like league is considered
That's
stronger.
That's a good question. I've been watching baseball as of late because my Yankees have been playing well, but beyond just these past few years, I mean, it seems like generally it's pretty balanced, but it's balanced in the sense that the winner of the World Series can come down to an American League team or a National League team, but it's also the same few teams. Like the Dodgers who won this year are going to be in the run for a while, and that there's something to be said about that. But that's a different conversation. It comes back to salary cap, which is what I feel like the NBA has solved with their system. I mean, who knows? I think at some point the NBA will expand. Like I don't know why, but I think they've been doing such a good job of growing the league, and there's rumblings of like a Las Vegas franchise, it coming back to Seattle. I want to see like a Mexico team open up. Like I would love to have a secondary team to root for, like to actually root for, and not just like, hey, like that team looks cool, like let me root for them on the side, But who knows? Who knows? But at some point, I would love to see the international landscape just grow, because the American players being the best players in the world is something that we're seeing kind of diminish. Like that's a narrative that's kind of getting squashed. All the top players in the league right now are international players. You have Jokic, you have Giannis, you have Embiid, and then you see how they, in like the FIBA tournament, the U.S. got knocked out believe it was 2 summers ago, and then last summer, like there was a very competitive final between the U.S. and France. So I definitely want to see more of that.
Yeah, I think the international angle is an interesting one. I didn't even intentionally lead that up with the whole in-season tournament thing, but I think your like perspective on it is very interesting. I think if we do incorporate those international teams in terms of like club teams, not actual international teams, into something like the in-season tournament, I think the NBA has the potential, and I think they have the pull to have their own version of like a Champions League type setup within that's going on like during the season that's separate from like strictly domestic NBA finals. Like that run. I know it's good. It would be a lot to set up, and maybe the struggle there is that maybe it could lead to too many games. That then that's stress on the athletes. So that's another thing they have to consider. But I think the whole Noah Lyles like American athletes versus world athletes, whatever. I think there's a lot to be capitalized on there. Like that discussion was massive, and I think it's a shame that it only becomes relevant every 4 years or whatever. I think really you do have like an opportunity there to make that like a constant competition that happens every year, or maybe part of the fun is that it only happens every 4 years. But from a financial perspective, I'm sure the NBA are always looking for ways to expand. But I think it's tough, just American sports in general, with like the franchise model. That maybe it's just like a difference in temperament. Maybe temperament is the wrong word, but a difference in like societies, like the way like Americans are always viewed as like a more optimistic quote unquote society. Obviously, you can take that how you want to take that with modern politics, but I think generally it seems like okay, anyone can make something of themselves. So like not having teams that are like the worst, they're like, okay, there's always the opportunity next year. You can get the number one draft pick and you can be at the top very soon. Versus like these other, which I think it's here nor there because I also like the relegation model. But something like England, just for example, generally you hear a lot of British people say like, oh, we tend to be a more pessimistic society. So being relegated, I think is just, it's part of that. I think it may just be a reflection of that. I don't know if people would take like kindly in the U.S. to having like their favorite team go down. Obviously, we don't even have the structure for that yet. I think that would take like a solid decade of like building up the grassroots and having like a league system below the top league, which is something they have in all these other countries for like soccer, for example, that we don't have. Like we just don't have. I know we have like the G League or whatever, but it's not really the same thing.
Yeah. I think it does go down to the local level in a way of like, in difference of societies, like just in England, like that's how they chose to do it, like support these small local teams, and with success and with investment, they'd be able to grow and succeed more and more. And I think the American system kind of, I mean, I don't know the history of it that well, but I would imagine it started with a more capitalistic intent off the rip.
Yeah.
So there's just no even origin point to, start a local team and like be able to grow. That's impossible. You just can't do it. I mean, you're talking about a Vegas team potentially starting. I'm sure that's starting because, a couple corporations and millionaires came together and were like, hey, we could do something here. So it really is a larger difference in terms of just how the societies function being reflected in the sports structure.
Interesting. Okay. Cool, man. Well, next talking point, which I'm actually kind of nervous to jump into. A little moment with y'all, man. Like I shared with y'all. So just context for the listeners, I have always been somewhat of a big wrestling fan. So it's just always been something that's interested me. Recently, the business is booming. Like it's just been growing, and they recently made a move to Netflix, and I've just been super tuned in. It's WrestleMania season, meaning that I mentioned the Royal Rumble earlier, but the Royal Rumble's about 2 weeks away. WrestleMania is just a couple of months away, so it's prime time to be watching wrestling, and they have big shows coming into the region in New York City and Jersey over the next few months. So I'm super excited about it. Another thing that's excited me has been the debut of Penta, also known as Pentagón or Pentagón Jr., who made a big splash in Lucha Libre in Mexico and was recently in AEW, which this is the rival wrestling company to WWE. The WWE's always pretty much always been the juggernaut, depending on who you ask. Obviously, they dipped here and there, but they've always been the main player. And so, yes, this huge Mexican luchador recently made his debut in the WWE, and I didn't want to send y'all his full match, but just based off the entrance, I wanted to know what are your guys' raw reactions to it.
Well, I guess I'll start as someone who, and I'm sorry to any listeners who like wrestling, but I literally have never watched wrestling. I never played any of the games. I know the WWE games or something. So I watched this with a blank slate, just that's that. Only knowing Hulk Hogan, but that has its downsides, I guess. So seeing this, I was like, all right, this is like a wannabe Kiss band member. This girl was crying in the crowd seeing him enter, and I had no idea why, because he's just like moving mad, entering the ring, taking up hella time. Like, bro, we get it. You're doing your walk. Like, just get to it. He was looking a bit snaky, with his mouth, a bit like a mime. So it's very performative. I always knew the WWE was kind of very drama or kind of performance heavy. I just wasn't expecting that. I don't know. I know some wrestlers got their own themes and ways they enter the ring, so I don't know if this is regular for this dude, but yeah, I can't say it made me more of a wrestling fan. But that's just me. That's not knowing anything about him or his background, but that's just me, uninformed viewer.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, because obviously luchador, and maybe you're a little more familiar with him than I am. Just to give a little bit of context to viewers, I'm also well, I was also a big WWE fan, but like it's been like 10 years since I was like heavy into it. So I've like kept up here and there, but like I've literally never heard of this dude in my life. I'd never watched AEW. I just knew like Punk was over there. And this guy, like, I don't know if this is like, no offense to him, I don't know if this was and I'm sure you'll give us some more context maybe, but I don't know if this is like his usual entrance, like video package and like music and stuff. But like when he first came out, maybe the audio isn't great on the video we watched, but like didn't even seem like the crowd was that gassed from what I could tell. And like maybe this is like a cultural thing, or it's like something in the luchador spirit that I don't understand. But bro started moving zesty coming down the ramp, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. Like,
I'm saying snaky, bro. He was squirming down there.
I ain't gonna lie. I like his energy, like generally. I love a good entrance. I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite ones that I've seen, but I think he had good energy for sure. I'm sure he'll have a good future, but like, even like he did like the little zesty walk, and then he started taking off his jacket, struggling a bit there. Like the whole thing is just kind of, I'm sure stepping up to WWE, like because for all intents and purposes, it is the big leagues. I'm sure there's like a little bit of nerves there, so I'm not gonna dog on the guy too much. But there have been better debuts that I've seen. Let's just put it that way. But I haven't seen the match, so maybe the match.
Yeah, bro, who was that fake Homelander he was approaching in the ring? Anyways,
fake Kurt Angle, bro.
You can stay at Homelander, man.
Stay at Homelander is crazy. This is Chad Gable, right?
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
I know him, but I don't. All I know is that only thing I think of him is that he's like broke man's Kurt Angle, but I don't know anything else about
I
him.
mean,
But maybe you can like enlighten me on that too.
I'm not like I don't hate Chad Gable, but you wouldn't be wrong to feel that way. Like we've seen the gimmick
Okay,
before and we've seen it done better. So, um,
gotcha.
that's really what it is. But dang, this this breaks my heart because I said to y'all like they're gonna think this is sick. Like they're gonna like be like they'll obviously have questions, but like I didn't think it was just gonna be straight from the jump. So I do need to give y'all some context. So one, his look. He goes by Penta or Pentagon, and the origins of his gimmick is that he was considered like the evil twin of this other guy, Octagon, in Mexico. And so he he has this like dark, I guess you could say, aura to him. Um, like his whole gimmick is dark. You know, obviously when he entered or when he made his entrance, the lights went out, and then it comes up, and there's red, and there's some pyro going on in the back. So I'm like, where do I even start? But the zesty walk or the snaky look. So this is why I think wrestling is so beautiful. Like it's things like that are Easter eggs that like if you know where it's coming from or if you know the inspiration, like you appreciate it. So it looks like he was paying homage to a legend in lucha libre. His name was La Parca, who I actually grew up watching. Um, when I was a kid. And La Parca had a very similar look, had this like skeleton jumpsuit, full black suit with like white. He had like, yeah, this white skeleton. And he would even come out to, it's interesting that you say like zesty, but like La Parca was very inspired by Michael Jackson. Like he would come out to Thriller. And he had like this like little like breakdancing kind of gimmick, and he would walk in that same way. Um, so that's where the inspiration came from. And who was that girl crying in the crowd? That was actually his daughter, Alexi. So she was just, just a proud daughter moment, just cheering on her dad.
Oh man.
The entire family was there, and he actually had a very heartfelt like moment in the ring after his match where he's just like, to be honest, I'm so glad I sent y'all the entrance and not his promo at the end because I feel bad for the guy, right? Like he I mean, this is also like I think he was set up to fail in this sense, but like he doesn't speak fluent English, so he was just like he was trying to do some English, but then in the end he kind of just was like, all right, let me just speak to y'all in Spanish to be honest. Like, and I think they were in, if I'm not mistaken, they were in California, so the audience was able to and understand him for the most part. It's a huge Mexican population, obviously, so like to me, people seemed excited for this. I was curious because not once did y'all mention like what was that like slogan that he like yelled out that like people, I don't know if y'all caught that, but like
I did not catch that.
Yeah, his main slogan is Cero Miedo, which just means like no fear. But he does it in his entrance, he does it during his matches, he does it during his promos, and people have actually been more tuned in or tapped in than I thought they would be. So I actually think I think it was no, Dre mentioned he wasn't sure if people were as excited. To me, people have been more familiar with him than I expected. But
Okay.
but I understand I understand the reservations though. Like as a wrestling fan, I understand that what I watch is sometimes not like to the outsider may not look may not look interesting, but I'm personally a fan of all the theatrics. I'm a fan of the gimmicks of like just the big drama moments, and I can appreciate an entrance. So I honestly was blown away by this. I wish Penta nothing but the best. I'm actually excited to see him in the big leagues. So I'm personally rooting for him, but regardless, I appreciate your guys' input because this is funny.
Yeah, man. Penta would beat my ass, man. Wishing the best, man.
You can stand on what you said, but
I'm standing on it. But I still think the WWE is always crying out for like the next great luchador to come through.
For sure.
So like I obviously I would hope for him to succeed. Like obviously we grew up with Ray, so I think that's like the GOAT for me anyway. Like obviously I don't know too much about the scene, but at least for those who've crossed over, he's like had like the biggest splash. Yeah, he is, right?
Yeah, I
would
would
assume so.
1000%. Yeah.
And then you had someone like Sin Cara come through, but I was like, what is this broke man's, bro? Like,
and that's so
like his
interesting
moveset
to me.
His moveset's amazing,
Cara,
but like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say when Sin Cara came, I was so excited to see him because again, I grew up watching him as well. And in Mexico, he was Místico. And so like I actually have like memories of like my dad, my brother, and I watching him and like being excited to see him come on because we thought he was like the coolest guy on the roster. And to see him jump into WWE after having seen like a success like Rey Mysterio, you're not wrong in thinking or like seeing or saying that like they're always looking for like the next luchador. Like I definitely see that, but I don't know, man. This all goes back to perspective. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm the most familiar with Penta's work. I knew who he was in AEW. I knew who he was in Mexico, and so seeing him just make a splash, it's like seeing. I guess it's the equivalent to seeing like a player you're rooting for. I don't know. We've talked about LiAngelo Ball, right? It's like if LiAngelo Ball made it to the NBA, you would probably, depending on who you are, like I'm a fan of the Ball family, I would be happy to see him make the NBA roster. So this is how I feel like watching someone like Penta.
In that corner, whoa.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd be happy to see him ride the bench too, because like I do not care about the dude, but I think that's a fair take. That's a fair take. And I don't want to hate on Sin Cara. His moveset was dope, but he just didn't, it didn't land the same way.
I mean,
and obviously it's impossible to follow up. Right. It's impossible to follow that up. But
yeah, I was gonna say like Sin Cara also had his like shortcomings. Like he didn't prosper, and he's partially to blame for that. Is all I'm saying. But that's
gotcha.
Conversation. Cool.
Yeah, we'll keep up with it. I'll be keeping an eye just because you gave that whole heartfelt backstory for Penta and his demon or his like evil self and his like maybe what happened to Octagon? Why is he not making the crossover together? I don't know what's going on with that, but I was gonna say now having the context, I will definitely be keeping an eye on Penta moving forward.
Octagon's also in his 60s, so that's partially why he hasn't made it down.
Crazy.
Penta's also pretty like on the older side. Like Penta is 39, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow, okay.
He's 39 or 40. So will he make a splash like Rey Mysterio? I doubt it. He's towards the end of especially when you're a luchador. Like the body's gonna give out. So I think this is more of like a big wrestler who's been successful in every promotion, making a jump to the big leagues. Like this is what I see it as. Is like
end of the career.
Twilight of my career. Yeah, let me get paid. Let me make it to the big leagues.
That's fair.
Have some cool matches and then go on like right off into the sunset. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to see what happens because regardless, he's gonna draw money regardless. So I'm excited.
Gotcha.
Cool.
All right, well, I guess we'll move on to the soccer segment of the show. And right now we're recording this on January 21st, just to date ourselves, but we're pretty much halfway through the Prem season, a few games over halfway. And I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on how the season might play out from here on out. We all have like a view on the table now, and we're going to just do some predictions for the end of the season. So we're each going to do our top 6, and you can't really talk about the Prem without talking about Man United. So we're also going to predict whether or not Man U are going to finish top half. But let's start with our top 6 predictions for each of us. I don't know if you want to just go everyone drop their 6, or we want to go 6-1, or I think maybe 6-1 would be fun to do. I know we're all following to different extents, so it doesn't matter. Predictions are never right anyway. So, but I'll start though, because I did actually just get like a rough idea, even though I was debating with myself as well for who would finish where, especially based on current form. And I think too, because we're recording this before the end of the January transfer window, things can change a lot in the next 2 weeks.
And they won't commend you.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But I think when we record an episode in a few weeks, based on any transfers that happen, we'll give ourselves some leeway to go back and do some revisions maybe. But based on right now, for 6, I'm just going to say I have Bournemouth in 6. Just to give a little.
All right.
We don't have to say too much on each, but I just like the form they're in. They don't lose too many games. And I just think they don't have any crazy stars. I think Kirkes is amazing, but like they don't have any crazy stars. But I think overall they're a well-coached team. And I was debating between them and Newcastle, but Newcastle just seemed more streaky to me. So I'm going to put Bournemouth in 6 personally. But either of you have an idea of who you think would be 6.
Interesting. I have a different idea. I actually think Aston Villa is going to move up to 6th. Mainly because of their recent performance. I believe it was against Arsenal, where just every time I watch them, mainly it's their forwards, Watkins and Duran, they just every time seem to be killing the other team. And I feel like with their performances alone, there's potential to move up there. And Bournemouth, albeit I've seen less of their games this season, so can't speak to them as much. But I'm firmly Aston Villa.
Okay, interesting. So you think they're jumping Bournemouth and Newcastle? Okay.
I think
we'll get to 5th. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Eric. I know. Obviously, you said before that you're following only here and there, but I think even then, because this is so volatile, it'll be funny if your predictions end up being the most correct. So, if you want to just throw out who you think might end up 6, just based on the current table.
I'm gonna just say Newcastle's gonna stay put, man. I have not watched I've watched maybe 2 matches this season. They, looked like they had a 4-game winning streak leading into this last week. So they did face a loss, I see. But I see that they're in the running, man, and they're within striking distance of Chelsea. They're just 2 points off. And I've always been a fan of Newcastle. I don't know why. Like, my main team is Man U as well. It's probably why I'm not watching, is because whenever my team isn't succeeding, I just tune out the entire league. But yeah, I'm just saying Newcastle's gonna stay put, man. I have nothing beyond.
Shout out to Newcastle, man. I'm pretty sure they were the team in that movie Goal from back in the day.
Yes, bro. Yes,
I always had a soft spot just because of that.
Fair enough. Yes. Yeah, I like Newcastle too. Isak, lead them in the line in my fantasy. So,
Isak going crazy. I'm surprised if he'll stay there.
Yeah, and Arsenal are feeding for him. They think he's gonna be the next Henry, but we'll see about that. Okay, well, interesting. I have Bournemouth, Alexi, Aston Villa. Eric, you have Newcastle staying put, and I'll make sure we keep track of these. So, end of the season, we can come back to these as well. But 5th place, this may be blasphemous, because just to let the viewers know, I am a Chelsea fan, but I have Chelsea in 5th. Which really? Suck. I really do want us to finish top 4, but I honestly think where we are now, based on where we thought we'd be coming into the season, this is a bit of an overperformance. And I think the last few weeks we've struggled, and I think that's kind of us regressing to the mean. Hopefully that's our weak patch and we go on a run here. But I think we're going to be more of a push and pull team till the end of the season. And I think another team that I have higher up is going to go on more of a run, which is going to keep us out. But I still think 5th would be good for us based on where we were last season and coming into this season. So I'll take a 5th place for Chelsea. But what do you think, Alexi? For
me, I actually think Newcastle is going to move up to 5th, mainly because what you were saying before of Isak. He's just going crazy. Their performances have been good. I say this with the assumption that Man City will move down to 7th. I say that as a hater and wishing all ill will upon them. So I don't see them in the top 6. Realistically, I don't know. But in my heart, they're not top 6 for me. Newcastle number 5.
Gotcha. And you, Eric?
I'm also gonna say Chelsea's gonna slide down to 5. Like I said, I've not been super tuned into the season, but from the little bit that I have seen, they haven't played super convincingly, and I think just the way things unfold, like I'm not sure if team who, like you said, did not have high expectations for the season, and I don't think has been playing super convincingly. I don't see them at finishing top 4, so I have them sliding back to 5th.
Okay, interesting. Some overlap here. This will be interesting because there's some teams I can already tell that we don't have, like some you might have in that I don't have in at all, or I might have in you guys don't have in at all. So I think this season especially is one of the more competitive seasons in recent memory.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of teams.
Mid-table, it's really
There's
interesting.
all the teams
Just-
up till like 10th or 9th are like they're all really battling for that top 6. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, moving on to 4th. I actually have Nottingham Forest drop into 4th. But even then, obviously, some people had Forest as relegation candidates before the season. So them finishing even anywhere near 4th is a crazy overperformance. So shout outs to them. They're doing crazy work this season. But I just think they're great at not losing games, and they have great defense. Probably the best keeper in the league this season, or at least top 2, with Sells, and their defense overall is just cooking. I just think they're due to have a little bit of slippage here and there by the end of the season. People said that would happen by now, and it still hasn't. So maybe they're just going to keep cooking. But I think it'll be realistic if they slip a little bit. So I had them to 4th, but that's still amazing for them.
I have to disagree with you there. I think Chelsea are going to stay in 4th. I know you had them sliding down, but I think based off what I've seen, simply the performances of Cole Palmer, easily best striker in the league still, I think they're going to be able to hold that top 4 spot.
Gotcha.
Just before I even give my prediction, I know I did have questions about Nottingham Forest. I know you mentioned they have a keeper. What else has made their season so successful, would you say?
Chris Wood is up to no good, man. There's a striker who was like he's on the older side.
Chris Wood.
I'm not sure.
Let me see
how old he is. Let me see. He's 33 already, which is wild. But he is just cooking this season. He's absolutely cooking. And just overall, their team. I don't know what the big change was from last season because the last few seasons they've just been buying a ton of players. But this season, they just put it all together. Their defense is really strong. I think that's like the main point. But they also have some players, which is why it's a good story. They have a lot of players that struggled at other big teams. Like I think they have Alanga, who was on Man U before. They also have Hudson-Odoi, who's a former Chelsea player, and just players like that who like really struggled at bigger quote unquote teams, and they're cooking. They're cooking as a good unit, and obviously Chris Wood, probably the most informed striker across the entire season. I think Holland's probably still scored more, and Isak recently has been on crazy form, but I think Chris Wood has been consistent like the entire season. So those are like the main reasons I'd say they're cooking, but they're just really well coached, I think.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. I'm always all for a small team making it far. I remember that. I just get reminded again. Not a big Premier League guy, but I remember that season with Leicester, with Jamie Vardy, them going far. So you're saying like an older striker carrying the load, like that's what I'm thinking of. So, I just do hope and wish the best for them. So let's say Arsenal slides back to the 4.
Arsenal, okay, that's a big one. That'd be a big drop.
I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly.
It's very interesting if they fall to 4th. I think their fans. Well, actually, I'll transition this because I'm going into my 3rd, and I actually have Arsenal dropping to 3rd. So I'll just give some reasons for that anyway. I think, well, one, their fan base, I think, would be quite annoyed if they somehow fell to 3rd because I think their fans thought this would be the season that they really have a good shot at winning the title, especially.
They thought that for a few years now.
To be fair, but then we had to deal with Invincible City for the last few years, and I think they thought if they had known that City would be where they are now, coming into the season, they would think, okay, Arsenal is by far probably the favorite to win the league, especially with like Liverpool having a new manager coming into the season. But Arsenal 6 points behind Liverpool, and Liverpool have a game in hand, which is crazy. I think they've been unlucky. They had the Odegaard injury early this year, and then obviously Saka's out now. But them's the breaks, bro. The game's a game, and I think Saka's still not coming back for a little while. And they just slip up at weird spots. So I just don't see them. I definitely don't see them winning the league at this point. If they do, fair play. But I actually have another team catching up and passing them. So, what do you think, Alexi?
I agree. I think Arsenal is going to be number 3. I say that mainly because of their performances, their inconsistencies as per usual. And you look at their game versus Man U recently, where they lost to Pens. And Arsenal, the team you expect to win the league if you're an Arsenal fan, losing to a 10-man Man U, arguably one of the worst Man United teams of the past 30 years, probably ever. I mean, there's no justification for that. So I can only see them fumbling opportunities. I can't see this being a title-winning season for
sure. Yeah, I agree. And before you give your next team as well, I think the main thing with them too is they struggle to score if it's not from a set piece or from Saka creating some crazy magic, and obviously he's out, so they're really they've started scoring a bit more.
I have to give credit to Odegaard. Well, I have to give credit to him. He's been putting in crazy work.
He just doesn't. He can put it on a platter all day long, but Havertz
Havertz can't finish it.
He's not that guy. I'm glad we robbed them. Let me put it that way. But yeah, Eric, I don't know what you're thinking for your where are we on your number 3 team?
Yeah, number 3. I'm gonna say, man, Man City's gonna come and take the number 3 slot, man. I know they had they've had a very tumultuous season. I've seen the clips of Pep Guardiola addressing the media, addressing the fans, and I know as a Man U fan, I'm supposed to hate them, but Pep Guardiola. I'm also a Barcelona fan at heart. Grew up a Messi fan. Grew up watching that Rafa Marquez team in Barcelona, so all the big ones and all the big players from Spain as well. So Pep Guardiola does hold a soft spot in my heart, and I think he's gonna find a way to crack the top 3. So I would say Man City at 3.
Interesting. That's funny you said that because I agree, and I have them going even further. I think Man City are going to finish second, which is kind of crazy. That's probably my big out there shout for the end of the season because they're currently in 5th and they're 2 points behind Chelsea at 4th. But based on, maybe we'll see in 2 weeks when the transfer window is over, but based on their signings so far, they've been the most active team out of these top teams. And obviously they have oil money and they've been doing well.
9.5 year deal.
I think honestly that's one of the biggest signings that any team can make right now. That's actually a wild signing to have for the next 10 years. Because I think a lot of people would have thought Haaland would moved on to Spain and moved on to one of those teams.
I 100% thought he was going to Spain next year.
I guess to be fair, his father played for City. I guess he's a big City fan, so they have his loyalty. But yeah, even they brought in Omar Marmoush from Frankfurt, who's he's lighting up the Bundesliga this year. You guys should go watch some of his highlights. He's actually cooking. And I want to say I signed him on career, but before City signed him. I was on him before City. Let me put it like that.
You were on it. You were on it.
But yeah, I think they signed a center back too, because their defense has been cooked this season. So I just think they've shown ambition. And I think it's maybe too late. They've fallen too far to really push to win the league. But I think they can make a solid push for second. And I just think it'll be funny because if they somehow finish above Arsenal again, the Arsenal fans are going to go crazy. So yeah,
that is true.
That's my prediction. True. City finish second.
While I heavily disagree, and my next point is based purely on heavy copium, I think Liverpool are going to go number 2. I see this, just to give my number 1 now, I guess. I see this being the Leicester season. Nottingham Forest going all the way.
Okay, I like that.
I think being only 6 points behind, I think it's a very feasible. Sure, Liverpool, they got a game in hand, but I think it's very feasible that Liverpool can slip up. I believe Salah had a bit of a scoring drought for past couple games. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, he was going crazy at the start of the season. Halfway through, though, things are slowing down. So, if things stick that way, if an injury possibly comes their way to their team, not wishing that, but low key, then I could see them slipping up, being number 2.
Interesting. Okay, what do you think, Eric?
I actually have the miracle season ending at the two slot, so I have Nottingham finishing number 2. I know I said I wanted like a storybook ending, but I don't know, man. I've been seeing Liverpool, like I'm seeing they just have 1 loss on the season so far, only 5 drawn, rest of 1. Like that to me just screams like dominance. So I just think it's gonna stay that way.
Yeah, fair. And I guess that tees up. I also have Liverpool finishing first. I like that we have someone who doesn't have Liverpool finishing first. That'll be interesting. And
I'm a Man U fan. I can't do that.
That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy if you had him first. But yeah, I think based on the season so far, I do think the second half of the season they'll be a little weaker than the first half. I think Salah, he posted that Christmas photo. That curse is too real.
Yep,
but
that's
I just
true.
think they have too much firepower, and they still have.
Can you explain that?
Salah has I think it was a few years ago. I don't remember the exact lore, but he posted this Christmas photo where then
literally just his family in front of the tree, right?
And then the back half of the season, he was just washed, and then there's this stigma around it. Yeah. And everyone was leading up to this Christmas, because first half of the season, he was, I would say, the best player in the world in the first half of the season. I would have him definitely on the Ballon d'Or podium, and I'd have him winning it if it's just based on the first half of the season. But everyone was saying, bro, do not post the photo. And Christmas came, he posted a photo with his family in front of the tree. And ever since then, not that he's been terrible, but he definitely has been on a bit of a dip from the first half of the season. But to be fair, first half was crazy. But yeah, because they're so far ahead, obviously it's only 2 games in theory, but I don't see them losing that many more games. And the game in hand, that low key, I will say, the game in hand is against Everton, who are their big rivals, Merseyside derby. And it's going to be the last game at Goodison Park, which is Everton's home ground. So that low key, that could be a little banana peel for them. That something could go wrong there. But I still think overall, they just they're too well coached, and there's too much firepower. They still have Van Dijk, best center back in the league. Trent, he's gonna be sweating to win the league with Liverpool before he goes to Madrid. So, I think
if he goes to Madrid, bro, after that Man U performance.
But yeah, I still got him winning it. But if somehow Forest pull it off, like you're predicting, Alexi, that would be crazy. That would be crazy.
Yeah, I'm saying this purely based off of hope. They got a Greek owner, so represent. Sure, he has had suspicions of, some mischievous stuff in the Greek league, but we don't got to worry about that. Yeah, I think this is their season. Huh?
Money stuff?
Paying referees, some
allegedly
dealing of the drugs with his shipping company.
I was gonna say allegedly. Blanket
allegedly over there. He was acquitted of all charges.
Fair.
So
less said about that the better. But yeah, interesting.
You didn't hear it from me.
Did. That's not some RTN allegations, but
no.
Okay, so those are our top 6. You guys can hold us to that. Although we do reserve the right, like I said, end of the transfer window. If there's any big changes in any of these teams, if Arsenal get an actual striker that's not Havertz, then maybe things could change. And we'll do a little revision then. But as of right now, you can hold us to these predictions. But there's one more thing I think it's important to discuss. Obviously, the biggest club in England, I would say the world, but Madrid are probably the biggest club in the world. But the biggest club in England, Man United, sit down at 13th place on January 21st with 26 points. This is, I don't think I could have, well, honestly, I could have predicted this because if Ten Hag was in charge, it probably would have been worse. That dude was terrible. But, you know.
I actually think it would have been better.
Because I guess no system change.
But I think the actual game performances and watching the games would have been terrible.
Because you do have to deal with the new system. But
yes.
Well, let's not even. If Spurs are at 15, so honestly, you guys could be worse.
I would hate to be a Spurs fan right now.
The Aussie coach is struggling, but yeah. What do you guys think? Man United finishing top 10? I think top 10 should be the goal at this point. I don't know if you guys have a different opinion as United fans, but I don't think you can expect too much more at this point.
Yeah, I like to think I have a more balanced head on my shoulders than most United fans. I think a lot are like demanding this be a top 6 season. You're insane if you think that. I truly think United, for a long time coming, since Ragnick said they needed open heart surgery, they need the time to look in the mirror and see what they are and deal with it. And I think Ruben Amorim knows this. He's said it, thank God, out loud multiple times. Reportedly, after their last game, he smashed the TV in the locker room, throwing chairs, throwing tables, screaming at players, and reportedly had them even crying. Like, dude was going after them for their performance and their positioning. And I think that's what we needed. Ten Hag, both in the media and reportedly with the players, just no character, kind of laid back, and he didn't really command the dressing room. I think that's changing with Amorim. I think the club is backing him and getting rid of some of those big names like Rashford potentially. I do take issue with the potential transfer of Garnacho, which has been coming up more and more, potentially going to Napoli or to Chelsea even.
I just see that report, yeah.
That would be crazy. That'd be the one crazy thing I would not be for, is letting someone that young go. I understand the club needs money for, more transfers to fit Amorim's system, but I think Garnacho, as a young player, academy player, has the room to grow into that space. He didn't start the season off the best, but he has been performing very well, in my opinion, recently. Not the best, but he's been giving assists. He's been doing his job on the wing. And for his age, I don't think there's much more you can ask. And especially with how the rest of the team is playing, I think that's someone we got to keep. But yeah, overall, I don't see Man U really going past the 10th spot. I think they're going to stay pretty far down from the top 6, unfortunately.
Interesting. I don't know I'll let you go first, Eric, and then I'll give a spiel to wrap it up. But what do you think, just based on, I know you, like you said, you haven't been keeping up too much, but if you were to harbor a guess based on form, as you can see, like the recent form, what do you think? Man U top 10 or no?
Yeah, so listen, when y'all had me, Dre, I think you inspired me to check out the Premier League this season. And when I first tuned in, I was excited. I was just like, let's see how Man U's doing. And the few weekends I did give them a chance, they just wasted my time, man. So I'm personally man that when my team is performing badly, I want them to just perform horribly. I just want them to if they're at the bottom, I want them to stay at the bottom. Right now, the Mexican national team is in shambles, and I want them to stay there because I want things to change. There's no real change that happens unless they hit rock bottom. So to me, I don't have them ending in the top half. They don't even look like they're within striking distance of the 10th slot. It looks like they're what? If you do the math, they're 7 points off, which isn't too crazy, but from what I've seen, they've been playing horribly. So I'm gonna have them sticking around. Just down
it
there.
is It is funny though, because even with them playing horribly, visibly the system they're playing in, you see so much more potential. And even with that system, it makes them look better than they are. So I do have to give credit to the manager, and I fully back him, and I would like to not sack a manager every 1.5, 2 years. And I actually want to commit to him, his vision for like 3 years, see what the result is, and go from there.
100% agree on that. I'm not a Man U fan, so I would like you to sack him, but I think genuinely, like, this dude, he is fighting a crazy uphill battle. I like Amarim. I think his system has a lot of, obviously we saw it worked out with Sporting. I think it has a lot of potential, but obviously the board kept Ten Hag through the summer, got more Ten Hag signings, and then brought in Amarim almost halfway through the season.
Criminal.
With Ten Hag players like Anthony, it's just tough. It's just tough. And so far this window, they haven't even backed him so far, which is tough. So I guess maybe they're waiting for the summer. But then why did they? Apparently, I heard they tried to say if you don't join when you join, it's not going to be open in the summer. So like you kind of just like giving them.
They forced him to join now
then you're not
and
going to
leave
back him
Sporting early
until the summer. It's like they're really trying to screw this guy over. But I think you have to stick it out. You have to see how this goes. Let him get some players in. I think you are in a tough spot with Garnacho, because I think you guys need profit somewhere, and you only have so many academy players that are worth anything. And obviously, you're not selling Ahmad ever. Do not touch that guy. So
no.
It's like Garnacho, Mainu. I don't know. It's tough, but.
And that's the thing too, is like on that left wing. I mean, I'm just looking right now. I don't think there's anyone else that could play there. Literally.
Especially if Rashford's out, then what are you doing? Yeah, it's tough. And you guys really need like some work with those wing back, wide midfield slots. I think having like people like Dalot pushing up, like, bro, in the final third, he is clueless, bro. Like, it's just tough.
In the final third, it's crazy. And then our strikers too. Højlund,
oh my God.
You know, he's had a lot of time now. He's got, I will say, consistently, the service to him has been terrible, if not non-existent.
But it's funny though, because like I agree, like the service hasn't been the best, but then when it is there and he whiffs, people are like, "But he's so young, man. He's so young." It's like, bro,
yeah. I will say, at least from game to game, I do see improvement in him. I'm more skeptical about Xerxes.
Interesting.
For me, my biggest issue is just the pace. Every time I see that dude run, or like it's a 1v1, I just know he doesn't stand a chance. And you know, it's nothing against him. That's just the player he is. And you know, that was a Ten Hag signing.
Ten Hag cooked you guys, honestly.
Kind of just
two strikers that are.
The only good signing he gave us was Ugarte, and apparently Ten Hag didn't even really want him that much. Just crazy.
Yeah. I think too with Garnacho, it's like, not to make this too long-winded, but I think with him, I know for sure, because he's only 20, which is still crazy. Like, he's had a crazy career for a 20-year-old so far, and like the jump from like 20 to 21, 22, 23, like big steps can be taken then. And I do think you have to seriously consider selling him, but I also think if you do sell him, he's going to go somewhere and go crazy, and then you're also going to be upset there. So you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. But as for the prediction, I can't see unless somehow the system with these terrible players starts clicking. And that's the other thing too. I like Amarim, but like, it has been a little while now. I know the players don't fit, but we hope you see a little better by now in the system. But I can't see a top 10 finish. I like Brighton a lot. I don't see Brighton dropping. Villa, like you guys have, or at least you, Alexi, have Villa pushing up to 6. Fulham's been really solid. Brentford, their forward line is really strong. Palace, I don't know about Palace. I think United could take over Palace, but other than that, I can't see them going past 10th, which is crazy because like obviously you'd never think a club the size of United would drop this far. Although as a Chelsea fan, we also dropped very far in the past, so I can't talk too much. But
and it is fascinating too because like it's just again looking at the squad on paper, I mean you wouldn't even imagine them in this position, especially with getting Mazraoui and De Ligt for the deal they did. I mean, with a backline like that, with Lenny Yoro as well, like you just would think they're unstoppable. But here we are.
It's not the case. Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Like I said earlier on, we'll see what happens with the transfer window. Maybe they'll back and bring someone in to help out, or maybe they'll sell someone at least to generate some funds. But overall, we'll see what happens with the whole league this window. I think because the league's so competitive, I would think more teams will be making big signings in the next few weeks because there's a lot of ground to be made up. That can happen. I think a lot of volatility. Like we all have very different top sixes, so the signings could be the big difference there. So we'll see. So far, City, they're going crazy. But other than that, we'll see you guys very soon, and we'll discuss this again based on the signings. And at the end of the season, like I said, we'll go through all of this, see who's right, who's wrong. Maybe we'll have some kind of stakes to it. Maybe whoever has the best top six will win something or something like that, or maybe whoever has the worst will lose something fun like that. But yeah, I think this was a lot of fun. And let us know in the comments too. Yeah, that'll be crazy. Let us know in the comments too what you guys think. What are your top six? Do you think Man U will finish top half, bottom half, or maybe even throw in your relegation candidates? We didn't do that, but throw that in there too. There's some very obvious ones, but Southampton, what the hell? But yeah, let us know in the comments about that too. A lot of discussion would be fun on this one.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure, man. All right, y'all.
Peace.
Peace out, y'all.